Welcome to our Saturday Simulcast, following the Boilermakers, Purdue Boilermakers, that is, 49-30 win over the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Veterans Day and Military Day at Purdue, and a very successful one at that. I want to thank our sponsor, the Union Club Hotel, Boiler Up Bar, 811 Bistro. We appreciate them as sponsors as well. I'll start with you, Tom. Certainly, Purdue scores more points today than they did in its previous four games. Maybe the competition was a little bit different. I understand that, but really, you have to look at it and say, you can't be anything less than a step in the right direction if you're Purdue. Is that you agree with that statement?
Oh yeah, just God relief, to finally get a win in that 4-game slide. Just to get that taste of victory right now. You talked about the offense getting that unit back on track. It has undergone a lot of criticism, a lot of focus, a lot of scrutiny of late. I think with good reason, right? Some people really wondered if there was much of an identity there, and there was certainly a lack of consistency. And yeah, they've been hit with injuries that have really impacted that line up front. But yeah, just to get that win for the offense to score 49 points, I didn't envision this at all. I don't think anybody did. Highest outpoint of the year, obviously, the most since Illinois. I think they had 44 against Illinois way back on September 30th. So first time Purdue had scored more than 14 points in a game since then. So on and on you can go with the offensive superlatives tonight, guys. 604 yards of offense. Purdue crested 600 yards last year against Nebraska, 340 yards rushing, I think. Most since 2018 against Eastern Michigan. Just a lot of positives, right, for Purdue as they're trying to finish this season with some momentum.
Mike, I thought one of the things early on, which was interesting, just a little thing, maybe not so little, and that was that Hudson Card's decision-making, and the fact early in the game that he tucked the ball and ran it, and Purdue's offense moved the chains early, and a couple key situations set the tone for what was going to be a record offensive day, certainly for the Ryan Walters era.
Yeah, a couple things there. Number one, in my opinion, he was quick with his decisions, whether he was going to pass it or run it. They incorporated a little bit more zone read with him, and whether they allowed him to read what was going to happen or they encouraged him to keep the ball, we'll never know. So those two things kind of, I thought, pushed that offense forward. But to me, for him to have his success, for them to have the running success they had, the offensive line was the best it's been all year. And this is a group that has been beat up, injured. Guys are, Gus Hartwig is going to right tackle at times, and they've been mixing and matching all season because they've just had so many injuries. And for them to step up, I mean, Minnesota doesn't have a bad defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fourth in the league, right?
Yeah, I mean, so that offensive line protected Card, and when Minnesota defenders got loose, he was able to get outside the pocket and make some plays. I thought he played a lot more composed than he had been. He didn't seem as jittery in the pocket, and I think that led to good things all the way around. He was on time with his throws. He found the open guys, and there were a lot of open guys today.
Yeah, yes, there were.
And I thought some of the plays that they ran, and as Tom mentioned, there's been a lot of criticism for the offense. There was a hint of a little bit more creativity with what happened today. So it was a great day for the offense, but I mean, you have to remember, and I think a lot of people will forget this, the way this game started. Mm-hmm. Minnesota went right down the field, scored, and that sucked some of the energy out of the stadium. And you thought that this was going to be a long day for Purdue, but credit the offense, credit the players for getting this thing back on track. And once they got going, they really didn't stop today.
Yeah, I thought for the first time too, Purdue was mixing and matching, doing some formational things that you guys may understand better than I do. But I thought the one touchdown pass to Garrett Miller was a well-devised play where, had a couple fakes in the backfield, and all of a sudden the seas parted and he was open. TJ Sheffield's touchdown reception was a great catch or a great play. It looked like, at least at a quick glance, as well. But Tom, finding a way to get somebody on their heels has to be part of this air raid offense that we haven't seen much of in front of that each week. But you look at that and say that has to, and then you have a couple games down the stretch here. Now Northwestern's been really good defensively. I get that. Indiana, not so much maybe, but has had its moments. My point is, you got an opportunity really here for the next couple of weeks to get some momentum from an offensive standpoint, from an identity standpoint, like you talked about.
Yeah, you're right. And to finish strong right after that 2-7 start, somehow they could finish 5-7. Boy, I think you never be so happy in your life to see a 5-7 record, and gives that team something at least positive to leave the season with, right? And you talked about the offense, Hudson Card, Garrett Miller's touchdown. He Coach Walters talked about Garrett in the post game, 6 catches, 65 yards. Sort of nice to see him have a nice ball game. And how about the running backs, right? Devin Mockabee, Tyrone Tracy, just terrific. Both running for over 100 yards today. And I tell you what, Coach Walters talked about both those backs, how hard they run. And he also talked about some of the plays Graham Harrell drew up as well. So just the balance today, the passing and the running was terrific. And Hudson Card, again, guys, Coach Walters talked about him in the postgame. Thinks he's finally healthy. He's trusting his players, trusting his teammates. And boy, he talked about some of the execution that he pulled off today. It was impressive. And guys, it was kind of cool that one play where he simple ball fake to Devin Mockabee, I think it was, or Tracy. He went right up the gut and ran right down the field, and he caught that long pass. It was nice to see this offense finally have some success. And Mike talked about the line too, guys. Josh Kaltenberger didn't play last week, got on the field this week. Ben Farrell, the NAIA kid on the other side. Again, like you said, this wasn't a chopped liver Minnesota defense. So kudos to that front for keeping it together and getting a push all night, guys. Hudson Card was only sacked one time, and he didn't seem to be playing under quite as much duress as we've seen in recent weeks.
Yeah, Ben Farrell, I almost got shown the door, though. He got one penalty, and he was chirping. I don't know what was getting into him, but Tim Newton was talking about it, sitting in the radio booth talking about the fact that he was like one step away, and Purdue could not afford to have to lose anybody to a second penalty or whatever the rules are there. But yeah, I thought also you look at Gus Hardwick, God love him, he's going in and out and just finding a way to get it done. I thought that was a huge part of things as well. And Mockabee finally getting loose. He's had 2 65-yard plus runs against Minnesota in consecutive years, but he's holding on. It's funny. You don't think he can run away with anybody because he's got both arms around the football like this. He has to slow him down. But that big run there really was kind of set the tone for giving Purdue, I think, a little bit of breathing room down the stretch. And again, an offense that might give some people at least the last two opponents, some things to think about. Mike, you look at Northwestern, and I know none of us have watched every game or what the Wildcats have put together, but what an amazing year they've had considering the season they've had, or how it started with Pat Fitzgerald, and how they're embroiled in it. Not that the players necessarily care about this, but they're still got a big vote next week about whether they're going to allow their stadium to move forward with concerts, all that kind of stuff. That has nothing to do with the Northwestern football team, but it's been really impressive in terms of how they've brought it to table. Now they are within a game of being bowl eligible, and they have to look at the game next week. Northwestern does, and says, we got to get this one to get to the bowl. And yet Iowa now looks like it's pretty much locked up the Big Ten West, as if we were all on pins and needles of who was going to win that. But Mike, talk about that. We've kind of been in this situation before of going up to games up there where there's some things riding on it and some things that you don't necessarily look forward or see that right in front of you that are really end up being really important when these two teams get together?
Yeah. In Northwestern, as you mentioned, what they went through in the offseason, and to be in a position, they got two chances to get one victory to get bowl eligible, and that would be a crowning achievement for this year's team to get that done. But from Purdue's standpoint, can they put back-to-back games together against
great question,
programs and teams that they're equal? I mean, these are teams you need to beat on a consistent basis. Northwestern, at least under Fitzgerald, gave Purdue fits with their physical play up front. But Minnesota had given Purdue fits too over the years. I was shocked when I looked up that Minnesota was 8-2 against Purdue in the last 10 meetings.
Yeah.
I just didn't think that was possible. But with Northwestern, it's similar to Minnesota, where you have to come out, on a hot start. You have to come out eager to go, and that's the thing now with this team this year. And I think one thing that probably will get overlooked a little bit is that Purdue basically was eliminated from bowl contention last week against Michigan. I know 5-7, and there's a chance that something could happen.
Does the APR matter anymore? I don't even know. But we won't get into that.
But I think we're all working under the assumption that Purdue is not going to a bowl game.
Assumption. And
you have a first-year coach, first-year staff, young coaches, and to keep this team together the way that it did. And I know Ryan Walters talked about it a little bit in his post game, but to keep it together and then come out and have this kind of performance, I think you got to give the people inside that building some credit for doing that. We're always quick to point fingers or criticize, but if they can continue something along what happened today, not necessarily win the game, but continue the play that they had on both sides of the ball, then that's a credit to Walters and his staff for keeping a team from just going in a different direction, knowing that there's nothing beyond Thanksgiving for them from a playing standpoint. And that's why these next two games are important. And as I've mentioned before, I don't believe in momentum from season to season, but you can do enough good things these last two games to make you feel good and maybe get rid of some bad habits and start pushing things in the right direction.
Yeah, I would agree that it's tougher and tougher to have momentum from season to season with the transfer portal. But I would say I don't bone to pick much with you. I never would with you, Mike, anyway. It'd be a silly thing for me to try to do. But if I was going to do it, I would say this coaching staff needs that. They need to have that positive vibe, momentum. And I think that's, and I'm not, and you weren't necessarily hinting that wasn't part of the momentum.
No, they're going to have to go out and sell something.
Yes,
to either a transfer, recruiting, whatever. They have to go out and sell it. And if you are 2-1 these last three games, 3-0, whatever you are, you have something to sell. You have something to promote within your program, and you can have some momentum that way. But rosters change so much; it's very hard to do. But they have to have something to sell, and this is a starting point for them to have something to sell.
Yeah, I think that is a true thing. When Tom, you cover recruiting and you look at where Purdue is, and it's still got a good class. That like every other, and they're not really any different than most anybody else where Purdue is in the marketplace. You got to hang on to that class, and like what Mike had said, this can help because all of a sudden you have a little bit of tangible evidence that we can do some good things. We being Purdue, and I think that's an important thing. I wanted to ask you, Tom, because you and I talked, and Mike, I think you were there on Monday as well with the press conference, just watching Ryan Walters a little bit. I was impressed just kind of watching his body language. This is last Monday in terms of he's never over talking or talking about what he's going to do, but there was a quiet confidence or something about him that I saw in him. Did you see that again after the game today? Probably was pretty happy, but that ability, even at 37 years old, that you want to show that, we still got this thing, guys. And it seemed to me maybe that if that spilled over onto the practice field this week, that can't help but have kept that attitude and those kind of things that are intangible that can keep Purdue moving forward. Do you have any of that same sense, Tom, still after last week?
I don't think this staff lacks for confidence at all. I don't think
Yeah.
Ryan Walters leads that parade.
Yeah,
You know,
probably true.
more power to him, right? You got to
Yeah.
believe in yourself, or no one's going to believe in you. So you need that. You need to sort of lock out the outside world too. Don't listen to all that noise. I know it's easier said than done. But yeah, he talked about how everybody in that building still sort of believes in the staff and what they're preaching. And he's always quick to praise his assistant coaches. He mentioned, of course, Graham Harrell tonight and Marcus Johnson, the offensive line coach. So, yeah, and you got to believe him, right? He talked about how the players are still all buying in, and there has been no backbiting. The locker room has not turned against anybody, and he talked, I think, on Monday too about that, about how he's been part of locker rooms where the season has fallen apart, and you get that guys that start to check out and lose interest and may not be playing their best. So he didn't get the sense that was happening at all with this team. And I think we maybe saw some evidence of that today against Minnesota. That certainly looked like a team that was still dialed in and hungry, despite being 2-7 and seemingly having nothing to play for, right? So a good sign. It's a real good sign, because the season's long, as you guys know. Prep football is hard. It's a lot of drudgery, a lot of practice. We're into mid-November now. Guys are tired. You're losing, and it's easy. I could see where it'd be easy to want to check out. But again, kudos to everybody for keeping together and keeping on the same page. And again, this is a great great sign and something positive for the program. And again, just one last look back at the game, guys. The big plays, right? The big plays. Seems like every week I'm lamenting the lack of big plays. And they were all over the board today. The 65-yard Mockabee run, 33-yard Tracy run, Dylan Downey had a 24-yard run. The long pass plays, Burks had a 42-yarder, Miller a 20-yarder. On and on it went, and no turnovers, right? Big plays and no turnovers. And again, lastly, too, Purdue gave up that late touchdown in the first half to make it 28-20, kind of demoralizing. It was very much a ball game, obviously, and the fact that Purdue came out and never really let Minnesota get in the game was, I thought, impressive as well. And that could have been sort of a demoralizing sequence there late where they gave up that touchdown to make it 28-20. So another positive takeaway from a day that, for all intents and purposes, if you're a fan, was perfect. Great tailgating weather.
Yeah, perfect.
Crowd was good. Ryan Walters, too, guys. Lastly, I'll say this. Ryan Walters made a point of starting this press conference with wanting to thank the fans, of course. And he knows he's had a heck of a lot of great support this year. And for that type of crowd to show out today, I know the weather was good, but still, I think says a lot about the fan base and how it feels about the football program.
Yeah, within 2,000 seats of a sellout. Yes, some went home after halftime, especially after it got a little bit cooler and the game was not in jeopardy. But I would agree. I think you have to look at that. I really was concerned about this game in terms of how many people were going to show up. If you're Purdue, you would, and we'll see what happens to Bucket game 2 in 2 weeks. If the weather's decent, I'm sure you'll have a decent crowd, even though the students won't be on campus for Thanksgiving. All right, Carmim, we'll give you the last word on this tonight. You can talk about Jim Harbaugh if you want. So we almost got through without talking about Jim Harbaugh. You can talk about
the Iowa offense. You can talk about the Iowa offense.
Iowa offense and a 22-0 shutout, right? Was it 22-0, right? Or you can talk about the 1999 Women's National Championship, which I'm not trying to. It's always great to see those people and what an unbelievable story that team is, and they've been making the rounds. They were in Mackey Arena last night and got a big ovation, and well deserved. And of course, today as well, and then tomorrow for their game, the women's game as well. It will be the celebration that nobody knows Purdue women's basketball better than Mike Carmim. But the floor is yours. Make it your best minute ever, Mike. Tell us what you think.
I will say this: the '99 Women's Basketball National Championship team has a much better offense than Iowa's football team this year.
There you go.
That is something that I will. I'll die on that hill.
Yeah, that's
if anybody wants to challenge me. But a couple things. Number one, and Tom may know this because I don't, and I've seen it a few times this year. But the combination of having Maccabee and Tracy on the field at the same time, whether they're in the backfield or Tracy lines up in the slot, I think when Purdue had some big plays today, especially on the first touchdown pass to Miller, those two guys were on the field at the same time, and I think other big plays were produced with those two guys on the field at the same time. I know they've done that on occasion. I don't know how many times. Tom probably knows, but those are two of your better playmakers.
Yeah.
And you've got to be aware, and you've got to defend those guys. You can't just back off one and focus on the other. And those guys have proven that they can make big plays, whether it's through the air with Tracy, as we saw today, or on the ground with Maccabee. And that's something that maybe you need to see here the last couple games a little bit more than what we've seen throughout this season to maybe keep this offense going in the right direction. But in closing, as people like to say, nice win, good win. I think it was unexpected on a lot of levels. Based on getting eliminated from a bowl, coming off the loss to Michigan, how would they react? And then you go back to the start of the game and how things didn't look very good at the beginning, but for them to pick themselves up in the game, but also have a really good week of practice to get ready for this game and execute at the level that they did on both sides of the ball. I know they gave up 30 points, and that won't look good, but if you go in the middle of the game and see the defense, I think, forced punts on 4 or 5 possessions and then gave the ball back to the offense, and they were able to extend the lead. I think that's where you give your defense a lot of credit for, and not really focusing on the 30 points and maybe the yards, but what they did in the middle of the game to give their offense a chance. So, yeah, it'll be interesting next week what they do against Northwestern, who's trying to be bowl eligible, and see how that plays out. I think it should be a close game, and Purdue's going to have to take care of the ball and all that kind of stuff, and Tom will prepare you for all that throughout the week.
Yeah, Tom. Okay, you're just any last comment from you, Tom, on that? Just to the fact that I agree with the whole idea of having playmakers on the field, and Tracy. That was interesting on a couple of situations where they were both in the backfield and they had very successful plays. But the final word from you, Tom.
Yeah, just again, I mean, there's no doubt those are arguably the team's 2 best playmakers. Why not get them on the field in concert? And not just their ability to run, but to catch the ball. I've had people always point that out to me. And they both are very, very good pass catchers out of the backfield, too. Get them out in space, get them the ball. You can even throw the ball downfield, we saw today with that big Tyrone Tracy pass. So, yeah, dynamic guys, and easily the strength of this offense this year. And, yeah, just down the stretch here, guys, it's going to be fun, like I said. See if they can take that momentum up to Evanston next week. It's not going to be easy. Probably going to be 20 degrees and windy.
No, it's supposed to be 55 and sunny is what early forecast. If you're
our Chad Evans for this.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah, you're right.
Do you have a tree of the week? Yeah, do you have a tree of the week coming up?
Yeah, I do.
What is your tree of the week?
I don't know.
I make fun, but I do like that little segment that he does. So,
but yeah,
Chad is great, by the way.
Right,
he's my hero. But go ahead.
There'll probably be 20,000 people there. Who knows? I mean, as you guys have been up there a lot too, that can be a real sleepy atmosphere. And then if it's
especially for a new 11 a.m. kick too.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be it make it even sleepier, right? So you got to be ready to play, right? And Purdue can just keep playing loose and free, right? The pressure's on Northwestern. They're the ones trying to get to the 6-win level. Purdue can just kind of let it all hang out. So it'll be fun. I always like going up there. It's a fun trip, and yeah, it'll be another interesting tell on how dialed in this team continues to be.
All right, we'll put an end to this and say thank you to both of you, and thank you to the Union Club Hotel. And yes, we will be back earlier in the day next week because we think that I don't know if it's official yet, but it's going to be a noon kick or 11 a.m. kick in Evanston Central Time for Purdue Northwestern. And that will be, again, an important game for both teams in one form or another. So have a great week, everybody. Thanks again, Mike and Tom, so much for your time. And we'll see you next week on our Saturday Simulcast. Have a great week, rest of your weekend, everybody. And again, to our veterans, thank you for everything that you do. And we'll look forward to more Purdue football coverage this week on GoldandBlack.com.